I'd like to begin with my presentation. Could you please share the presentation?
About your presentation
The
right now.
presentation is already there, Mr. Ajit. Yeah.
Okay, first page, please.
All right, next. Next slide.
First page. Next, please. Next, please.
Okay.
Okay, so what's the role of youth in preserving, promoting, and developing culture or tradition? We should understand that when our place in that our values actually is shaped by three components. There is a family, um, and then religion and society. So, uh, could you give me just a minute, please? Okay. So, uh, we understand that during our life here, we understand that we need to uh, understand that the values that we inherit actually comes from generations, from our grandparents, our ancestors, and so we must preserve the values, core beliefs that we have. Also, in this case, technology is very useful, but only in some aspect of preservation. For instance, we may use the technology for preserving to document in microfiche, for instance, for storage, all uh, the culture or tradition that we have. But most importantly, how we keep promoting them. I mean, how we can promote our tradition, our values by keep promoting. How many of you, like for instance, have Facebook with your traditional dress, for instance, or perhaps promoting our dishes, national dish? We have tradition here in South Africa during the Christmas time that we send like wines, for instance, for our counterparts. But I send them instead Indonesian coffee or tea to promote our food. So that way we can also preserve our culture and our tradition. And we may also next, please. Next. So what we must do? There are three things that we should do. You have to know your place. You have to learn history. Because why history? Because it connects the past, present, and future. By understanding our past, we know our place at present time and how we may impact in the future. In Indonesia, we have like 700 languages and 600 ethnic groups. They live in complex value system. And also in South Africa, there are actually a group of Cape Malay. It's called Cape Malay, but they are descendants of prominent ulama from Indonesia, Sheikh Yusuf. He was exiled during the Dutch period in the 17th century. But they are proud of being half South African and half Indonesian because their roots is in Indonesia. And the second thing, you should be proud of yourself. I mean, we may be cosmopolitan. Uh, you should wear traditional attire, speak local language, and also promote national dishes like I mentioned earlier. I may be a metropolitan like Pa Suprapto or Deta, but my children, my kids are more cosmopolitan because they move from countries to countries. Uh, So, but they speak Spanish. Even when they quarrel, they use Spanish instead of Indonesian. But they still proud of call themselves as Indonesian. So the language is only a tool for them to survive in this complex world. Complex world. But still, they remain deep down in their hearts Indonesian. And the third thing is next, please. You have to stand firm in your core beliefs. I mean, those are values that are inherited in your genes, in your DNA. So what we should do for final thoughts, I think the first thing that we have to find the right balance between adaptability and core values. Of course, we must adapt to new, ever-changing environment, but at the same time, you have to stand firm on your core beliefs, core values. You should not be easily swayed by foreign influence. It should enrich your views, but should not change your attitude, your approach towards the world by exerting your core values. And second thing, you have to be open-minded, not conservative. By traveling a lot, if you have the opportunity to visit countries, you may find that many beautiful places like in South America, in Europe, actually, when you would realize that your home country is more beautiful, and then you should preserve that. And the third thing is perseverance, because you have to persevere you have to have faith that what you do would make a difference in the world. And but the underlying principle is national interest prevail. No matter what you do, actually, national interest that actually is the red line for us. You may do good things for other people, but at the end of the day, it's the national interest that we have to uphold. I think that's my brief introduction. I'm very brief because I like to invite more discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. We hope that we will get some insight and can be implemented in our daily activities as young generations.
Once again, thank you so much for your incredible presentations, Mr. Siraj and Mr. Naraya. Now we have a question sessions, and we already choose 3 best questions. So are you ready for discussions, delegates?
So we are still waiting for the questions to pop up on the screen. So
All right.
please be wait.
All right, Mariani. I think which country for the first questions? I'm really excited.
Okay, so
The first question.
okay, the first questions.
Tell us, Mariani.
I want to work for the UN aim. What best advice can you give? Probably it will be answered by Mr. Siraj and also Mr. Naraya.
What was the question again?
I want to work for the UNM, but what best advice can you give?
What advice?
All right. Let me read again. I want to work for the UN. What the best advice from you guys? From you, sir?
Oh,
It means
United Nations.
Yes,
Yes.
probably it means United Nations.
So for the first answer, we'll be going for Mr. Siraj. Can you answer?
I don't have any direct advice or suggestion, but most important thing is probably language. You should master several languages because at least they are bilinguals, not English, Indonesian, but French, Arabic, German, Spanish. So you should at least try to master one foreign language, and then I think the recruitment is open on website, you could see the vacancies in their website, starting from the low level is P7, I believe. And then maybe if you have like friend or relatives working in the at the UN Secretariat, would be helpful, because if they know something and they could be one of your references, it would be additional value for you. Other than that, I don't know, maybe just prepare for the test. They have intake yearly. When I was in New York, I knew some of Indonesians are already in at the secretariat, but in general, the developing countries are underrepresented in all international organizations, not only UN. So you would have great opportunity, especially from developing country, because you would be considered as part of the underrepresented countries. Um, I don't know that I don't have any specific advice other than substantive issues you have to master, because you will be depends on the place you'll be working, either in budget committee or in at the secretariat. For the most part, you will be working at this secretariat of the UN, and you have to be prepared to be posted in all countries in the world, not only in the US, including Africa. Thank you.
For Mr. Siraj for answering the question. I would like to remind to all delegates who wants to give the question, please put your name, nationality, and to whom your question is going to be answered. Okay, Mr. Ari.
All right. For the next question. All right. For the next question, it's going to Mr. Nararia. The question is, what motivation would you like to motivate young generations, especially to international relations students?
Well, maybe this is something that is also related to the first question, right?
Yes.
The way I look at it, correct me if I'm wrong, Pak Muhammad, I've worked both for the public and the private sector. Essentially, I think if you need to know yourself, right? You need to know whether you want to be more policy oriented. If you are, for lack of a better term, would like to work in a profit or non-profit organizations. When I started my work, I was asked, are you a corporate person? Are you a company person? Or are you an entrepreneur? Right? Because if you are a corporate, basically, you are working within a system, right? If you are an entrepreneur, basically you're more, you move all the time and all that. Basically, there is less a system in the way that you do your business. If you're a company, at least this is a personal opinion, you're a bit of it, right? And oftentimes when I see a generation like yourself, and this is something I also learned from my own children, and evidently also from our employees. Like I said, many of them are Zoomers. Is actually to look into addressing the areas on the Millennium Development Sustainable Goal. Making that a partnership between variety of stakeholders, right? At least the way I grew up, oftentimes a lot of stakeholder, meaning groups of people, I find them sometimes resistant to change. They have a strong opinion on one thing, and it's very hard to break that wall, right? When I see generation like yourself, especially the youth, look at you guys, so many people from so many countries basically getting together at such a young age, you're beginning to see, that the way we need to move forward in the world is basically, getting to closer, have better understanding of the culture differences, see the uniqueness, right? See the thinking on the other side, and just looking at what you guys are pulling through with this event, I was actually very surprised, right, that you guys are able to do this. It takes actually sometimes, sorry, for us consultants to do it, but I'm sure that you guys actually did it on your own, and I think this is amazing.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Naraya, for your answer. I think delegate, you should know who you are to set what goals that you have for your future and understanding about what is diversity or differences. So, Mariani, we step to the next question, and the
Okay.
question is going to.
We move to the third question, and it will be answered by Mr. Naraya. How do you be more confident, and how to use our knowledge and experience in contributing to the UN? It's still similar with
To the
the
UN?
previous
Oh.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, I always have a motto. You guys need to make mistakes, right? Because when you guys make mistakes, it means that you're doing something. It's always better, to do that rather than to do nothing. If you know what I mean, right? So I would. I would also converge, as you guys are studying, your journey, is actually look at yourself and, be patient, basically, right? Look into what your passion is, basically, very different from my generation. Young people like you are actually driven by passion, right, in what you need to do. And of course, Mohammed, maybe you have better knowledge, but the Millennium Development Goal actually consists on so many areas, right? Try to understand where you guys fit in, basically, in the action plan of that goal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naraya, for your answer again. All right, Mariani, what's next?
Okay, so for Mr. Siraj, due to our connections, probably this is all about networking issue. So delegates us to do a re-explain about your previous presentations.
Is it okay, sir?
Is it okay? We
Oh.
got a networking issue.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
delegates
I should
didn't
repeat.
receive.
Yeah, the representation.
Yes,
So, Mr. Naraya, you may have the
Okay,
floor.
Mr. Siraj.
so basically, I think the theme of what's it? Preserving culture and heritage in a dynamic digital world is very timely. I mean, so what are the roles of youth in preserving, promoting, and developing culture or tradition? So we may agree that over time, these roles are shaped at least through three entities: family, religion, and society, including school. They are part of the factors that mold our characters, our values, principles, what we believe in overall what of who we are right now. Next page, please. And for me, technology should not detriment our rich culture. On the contrary, technology should help us in preserving the tradition and culture. But technology has its limitation. It may help us in documenting several aspects of the culture, cultural heritage, but um, but most importantly, how each one of us could contribute to the preservation of our own culture by keep promoting them. So it is a lifetime job, not an easy job, but yet a noble one. We may become global citizens, but we have also traditions that we have to preserve. Um, okay, in Indonesia, we have the tradition of going back to our hometown during the Lebaran to celebrate with our families. But for my kids, their hometown is Jakarta because they're more cosmopolitan than our generation, Prapto and I. So I think, but the identity have to be they are still Indonesians. Their roots are in Indonesia. So what we must do, before you know your role in society, you must know your place in history. So that's why, like I mentioned earlier, you have to learn your past. You have to be, you have to have strong memory of your history of your country. Why does it matter? Because history is inescapable. Um, it studies the past and the legacies of past remain in the present and shape the future. It connects things through time. In fact, we are all living histories. What we do today may have an impact in the future generations. So, uh, understanding the linkages between past and present is absolutely basic for a good understanding of the condition of human being. In a nutshell, history is not just useful, it is essential. You have to have a strong understanding of your history, not only your family, but your country as well. And second thing is you should be proud of yourself. Like I mentioned earlier, by keep promoting your own culture. And third is you have to stand firm in your own core beliefs. Try to speak your local language um, occasionally. And the food for thoughts, I think the world is getting more complex. Issues are becoming more intertwined, and non-existent issues 20 years ago right now have to be dealt with. Even now, we have to deal with Corona. Corona is here to stay. We have to adapt to new normal. So my message would be, you have to find the right balance between being adaptable to the ever-changing environment. Always be prepared for any eventualities, while at the same time, you have to stand firm on your beliefs and core values. Be open-minded, moderate, not conservative. The more you are exposed to other culture, the more you realize that your own culture is actually unique and needs to be preserved. And you would appreciate more the beauty and richness of your own country. So that's my presentation. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much for the presentations. It's very meaningful and we got so much insight from your presentations. Now we step to
The next question and answer sessions. And we step to the next question. The question is going to Mr. Nararia again. So sir, are you ready? The question is about, what do you think? Wait a minute. So the next question is going to Mr. Nararia again. What do you think of being open-minded?
Oh, actually, this is something that, as Pak Muhammad said, is very important, right? One of the things that I'm concerned about in this digital era is often the speed of information, right? The speed of the social media, where people tend to be a little bit more judgmental, in a certain news. People are very quick, right? And often I look at the group of young diplomats,
Langsung
like
pertanyaan selanjutnya. Bisa
young
dulu.
people
Edit dulu.
excel in international relations, is actually
Ini masukin
define
dulu.
that open-mindedness, right? Um, Meaning to say, if a certain issue comes in this COVID situation, if, as you can see, right, a lot of people
Gampang-gampang.
are doubtful about the government's action. There is lack of trust, and those sort of thing we hear, and it's moving very fast in the social media, right? But you know what I expect with people like you, because I certainly believe that you are very open, is actually to deep dive, on the look back, read more in the usual tradition sense, on the history of vaccination, the history of pandemic, you know, and with that knowledge that you guys have, basically spread the word with open-mindedness, right? That's the kind of open-minded I see, because in a very funny kind of way, the social media opens the opportunity, but also somehow, uh, exerts certain closed-mindedness, right? People become too judgmental too quick, right? But there has to be that balance, and I'm hoping, people like you can maintain that fair and balanced opinions. Yeah.
Maria, for your answer. And now we move to the last question.
Yes, for the last question, it will be answered by Mr. Siraj. Do you think the current generations are moving away from culture and heritage due to the technological advancement? Mr. Siraj, you may have the floor.
Thank you. I don't think they necessarily move away, but as I mentioned earlier, that one thing that should be kept in mind, technology should be used as a tool to assist you in preserving your own cultural identity. You have to be firm in your belief, and you have to be proud all the time, being of yourself from your own country, by like I mentioned earlier, by speaking the local language, by wearing traditional dresses. How many of you are putting up your profile pictures in Facebook with your traditional dress? How many speak local language, for instance? And even how many names given by your parents with traditional names? We used to have traditional names in Indonesia, but now I think more. I mean, the names are now quite varied. So I think it's not the question whether you are moving away from your culture or not. When you are not strong in your identity, you could be swayed easily by by foreign culture. You may like the Korean movies, for instance, or the hip hop songs, but at the end of the day, you should be proud that you are Indonesian. So that way, you could steer the technology to your own advantage, not the other way around. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Mr. Siraj, for your answer. I think I'm agree with Mr. Siraj. We should use technology as a tools to know about the culture and heritage, and don't let the technology make us moving forward, moving away from the culture and heritage.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Mr. Siraj, for your
That's
answer.
right. Thank you so much for all the speakers who have answered the question. Dear speakers, before we close this grand symposium and the discussion, please give your closing statement for our delegates.
For the first closing statement, to Mr. Siraj, you may have the floor.
So, like I mentioned earlier, that I don't have much to add, but in more ever-changing environment, more complex and intertwined issues, the world that we live in is completely different than 20 years ago, even for 20 years from now. But one thing is for sure, if you are deeply rooted in your own culture, you may stand the weather of time and influences. But I'm also, if I may request you, try to pass the traditions and values to your next generation. You have to, you can help them to understand your past. For instance, like I mentioned, the Cape Malay, the Cape Malay society here, they they felt that they're being part of Indonesia, so half South African, half Indonesian, because their parents, grandparents, always preserve the tradition from Indonesia. Some of the words are even spoken from in Afrikaans. Actually, the roots are in Indonesians. So I think it's important that you cannot be shy of your own culture. You have to be proud of your own culture, and you don't need to change your identity. Once you lose your identity, you will not exist anymore as a human being. Thank you.